9 years, I've never seen anything like that.
The NBA is governed by super strict rules and regulations that have to be followed very seriously. But there are times when even the greatest of players fault or succumb to unworthy desires that temporarily strip them of the right to play on the court. So in today's video, we'll be looking at some players who got banned from the NBA and why. Make sure you stick around for the whole video because some of these will blow your mind. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. First, we start with something light from Dion Waiters. Miami Heat suspended Waiters back in 2019 when he failed to attend a game after having a panic attack while he and his teammates flew on a chartered flight from Phoenix to LA. It was kind of a valid point to be missing a game, but the team later learned that this was self-induced after consuming an edible. This resulted in a 10-game suspension and ultimately cost him over $834,000 in forfeited salary. What's worse though? It meant not having to be awarded his $1.2 million bonus he should have received for playing in at least 70 regular seasons. Next is Joakim Noah. The 6'11" New York Knicks center received a 20-game suspension without pay for using a substance called selective androgen modulator. It's actually a legal supplement for most parts, but it's still banned by the league since it acts much like a steroid without having to use the actual thing. Noah has since apologized for his actions, but said that he tried taking the supplement to speed-track his rehabilitation after being plagued with several injuries over the span of 3 seasons. Now you know that's not the way to go, Joakim. Next up are quite a few players who were all served 25-game suspensions for being caught using various inappropriate substances. Washington Wizards guard Jody Meeks was benched for 25 games in 2018 after testing positive for a growth hormone-releasing peptide. However, Meeks denied these allegations and had appealed to the NBA to reverse the decision. Next, we have Wilson Chandler, who was also banned for the same amount of time just last year after testing positive for the same growth hormone product. This came after just signing with the Brooklyn Nets for a $2.6 million annual deal. This was also the fate of Phoenix Suns starting center DeAndre Ayton after getting banned from using a diuretic. But he was warmly welcomed back by his team at the end of the suspension since he was definitely badly needed by his team. The next more person to get a 25-game suspension is Atlanta Hawks forward John Collins in 2019. Collins tested positive for another GHRP2, which stimulates growth and may lead to increased muscle mass. Due to the suspension without pay, he had no choice but to forfeit more than $600,000 of his $2.7 million salary. Then we have Tyreke Evans, who got dismissed and disqualified from the league indefinitely for substance abuse, although the substance in question was never publicly mentioned. Despite the harsh sanction, the Indiana Pacers guard can still reinstate after 2 years upon the approval of the NBA and his association. Next, we have Chris Anderson, who had a dramatic career in the NBA, and it all started after he was kicked out of the league in 2006 for testing positive for illegal substances. At the time, then New Orleans Hornets Anderson was in the middle of a $14 million contract, which was supposed to pay him until 2009, but lucky for him, he got reinstated 2 years later. Of course, part of this list is also O.J. Mayo, who got banned from the NBA in 2016 for violating the terms of the NBA's anti-substance program. What's worse is that he's been handed out one of the harshest punishments short of an actual lifetime ban. He was sentenced to a 2-year ban from playing in the league. However, the NBA has refused to announce what he was actually tested positive for. This wasn't his first stint with a suspension, since he had previously been given a 10-game suspension for using other things. Next, we have Michael Ray Richardson, who was given the boot in the NBA in the early 1980s after testing positive for illegal substances for the 3rd time. Clearly, his accolades as an awarded NBA player will not prevent the league from sacking someone who struck out of his chances by using substances again and again. Next is Richard Dumas, who also got into trouble with the league after getting suspended 3 times for the use of bad substances as well. First was in his supposed rookie season in 1991-1992, again a year later, and finally again in 1995. He went back and forth to rehab so much that he finally ended his short-lived NBA career at only the age of 26. Then we also have Roy Tarpley, who on the other hand got mixed up with both substances and alcohol so much so that the NBA had no choice but to ban him indefinitely from games. He was even given the chance to return in 1994, which he wasted away after being caught drinking just a year later. Then there's Dwayne Washington, who was drafted by the Bullets in 1988, but was subsequently released for 2 years for substance abuse just after 15 games. After being allowed to return with the Clippers in 1993, he decided to finish his career out in Europe. We can't forget about Malik Monk, who became the latest victim of the NBA's war on substances. The Charlotte Hornets guard received an indefinite suspension after testing positive for an undisclosed substance just this year. This comes as a huge blow for the Hornets, since Monk has just stepped up his game after assuming a lead scoring role for his team. Now let's break it down into another segment regarding scandals. To start off this section, we have Jack Molinas, who was actually a brilliant player for the Fort Wayne Pistons who got kicked out for gambling back in 1954. He actually started as a point shaver back in his college days, and when he stepped into the professional arena, he started making bets on his own team. The league definitely did not appreciate this one. But we all know that Molinas' bad rep did not end there, since he also had a short stint in Hollywood making graphic content in Taiwan. Next up is Jeffrey Taylor. The Charlotte Hornets forward got suspended for 24 games in 2014 after he pleaded guilty to misdemeanor domestic disturbance and malicious destruction of hotel property. The ban cost him almost $200,000 out of his $915,000 salary. The NBA clarified that they did this to protect the public confidence in the league, but that doesn't mean they will be dealing with violence issues in the same manner. It's just going to be on a case-to-case basis. For the final category in this list, we have rough play on and off court as the reason for NBA player suspensions. As role models, we can't really have NBA stars engaging in brawls or other bad conduct now, can we? So for this part, we have Carmelo Anthony, who got suspended for 15 games following a skirmish between the New York Knicks and Denver Nuggets back in 2006. The fight began with a flagrant foul by Knicks guard Marty Collins and J.R. Smith of the Nuggets, and being a star, Melo got the short end of the stick, getting the highest suspension count. The brawl came 2 years after the Malice at the Palace, which we will definitely discuss soon, so we kind of expected such a harsh response to show that the NBA is clamping down on brawls. Next is Latrell Sprewell, who is also on the list for attacking his own coach. This was way back in 1997, but of course, NBA fans can never forget. What's worse, this happened during the Golden State Warriors practice. It almost seemed as if Sprewell bottled up a lot of frustration against his coach, PJ Carlesimo, to choke him during practice for everyone to see. Latrell even made threats against his coach's life, and naturally this is frowned upon by the organization. He was later suspended for a total of 68 games, which cost him almost $6.5 million. Of course, Sprewell believed that the punishment was a bit too much since he said he wasn't even choking PJ that hard. Next up, we have Gilbert Arenas, who made the mistake of bringing something unnecessary into his team's locker room. So if you haven't heard this one yet, Arenas admitted that he actually brought 4 unloaded items to Washington, D.C., which in case you didn't know is illegal. Then he proceeded to bring the said items inside the Verizon Center locker room. Why did he go through such great lengths just to show them? Well, this actually happened because of a card game with Javaris Crittenton. So for some reason, things escalated quickly to the point that Arenas actually brought his weapons into the arena. But it turns out, Javaris had his own loaded and pointed at Arenas. Now let's talk about the infamous Pacers-Pistons brawl, or the so-called Malice at the Palace that happened on November 19, 2004. With the Pacers leading 97-82 against then-defending champs Detroit Pistons, the Pistons center Ben Wallace was fouled hard from behind as he was attempting a layup by Pacers small forward Ron Artest. Thinking it was intentional, Wallace naturally got furious and shoved Artest. Eventually, the bench on both sides emptied out as chaos erupted, and then suddenly, the audience were no longer watching a heated NBA match, but a wrestling Royal Rumble. But of course, what's a brawl without audience participation? A fan actually threw his emptied cup from the stand, which unfortunately hit an already mad Ron Artest square in the chest. He decided to charge at the fan, sparking another massive brawl that was joined together by players and spectators alike. Unfortunately, Artest mistook another fan to be the man that hit him. When the fight was over, the referees decided to award the win to the Pacers, and of course several players got served with suspensions for their hand in the brawl. 4 Pistons players, including Reggie Miller, Chauncey Billups, Derek Coleman, and Eldon Campbell, were served with 1-game suspensions. Pacers' Anthony Johnson got handed a 5-game ban. Surprisingly, Ben Wallace, who instigated the fight, was only given a 6-game suspension, which meant a $400,000 cut from his pay. Pacers player Jermaine O'Neal was initially sentenced to a 25-game suspension, but was reduced to 15 games on appeal. Steven Jackson, however, got a 30-game ban, which meant he got $1.7 million less in income. And of course, Ron Artest got booted out for the remainder of the season, which was a total of 86 games. He lost a staggering $5 million due to this incident. So there you have it, some of the most intense and craziest moments that NBA players have been banned from the game they love and respect so much. It's kinda sad to see how someone can want to play professional sports like the NBA from such a young age, train their whole life, dedicate and sacrifice everything to only potentially get in a fight or mixed in with substances they shouldn't. I would imagine that if something you wanted so badly and had worked so hard for finally became yours, wouldn't you do everything you could not to lose it? Anyway, let us know what you think of these ball players. Thanks for watching the video.